Today we have the Viper V3 Pro. This is the newest mice. This is the newest, coolest thing on the block. I want to compare it to the DeathAdder V3 Pro because that's their best DeathAdder. And then I also want to compare it to the Beast X because this is kind of the new magnesium mouse. It's really cool. It's kind of similar kind of shape, so it's definitely gonna be an interesting comparison. And then these two mouses are kind of old, but they're more of a shape analysis. So this is the Viper Ultimate. It's the same as the V2 Pro shape. And this is the Logitech G Pro Wireless, which is the same as a super light shape. So we can talk about that afterwards as well. The Viper V3 Pro versus DeathAdder V3 Pro. Really, one is a larger mouse and an ergo mouse. So it's completely different in that aspect. The other one is a medium-sized mouse and a symmetrical mouse. But really, the spec-wise, they're pretty similar, honestly. Even though the Viper uses a newer sensor, they both have 8K polling, they both use optical switches, they both have the scrolling wheel. That's really nice. The scrolling wheel is a little different, though. The one on the Viper is a little bit more tactile. You can actually feel the individual steps versus the one on DeathAdder is a lot more smooth. And then the optical switches, I mean, they're both very similar. I feel like it's slightly more spammable on this one, but the difference is not much. They basically use the same switches. Side button wise, like personally, I do like the bigger side buttons and they just feel slightly tightened up a little bit more on the DeathAdder versus the Viper. I mean, it's not that much difference. Honestly, when I'm pushing them, they're both basically the same, but it feels like there's just slightly more travel on the Viper, but it's really a small difference. Honestly, it's not really worth mentioning. The coating on my Viper V3 Pro is better because it's newer. It has new coating. I have an older DeathAdder V3. Apparently, they updated the coating on this mouse to be the same as this, but my older one does not have that. So the coating would be better on this newer Viper V3 Pro in that case. So when it comes to the feet of both of these mouses, honestly, the Viper V3 Pro with its bigger feet does feel more consistent, faster, and smoother than my DeathAdder V3. Like this, I can definitely feel it not glide as easily. It makes more sound too. It's like a lot more silent on my Viper. I mean, it could just be honestly the weight, because the weight is a lot lighter on the Viper V3 Pro. I mean, if you take a look at this weight, it's 55 grams, right? And then we have the DeathAdder V3. This is 64. So really it's almost a 9-gram difference. So I feel like that weight definitely plays a factor into the difference in the friction for sure. So really these mouses are very similar. I would say for a lot of people, this one's going to fit better in their hands. This one is going to be more comfortable if you like that higher hump. That's really the biggest difference between these two. And the fact that, well, this is like a large mouse. Like if you have a bigger hand, definitely go for the DeathAdder. Now let's talk about the Beast X. So the Beast X is I would say, certified mouse enthusiast mouse. This one is made of magnesium. It's made of metal. It's freaking sturdy as hell, but it's also really lightweight. Like it's pretty much insane. Like this is 40 grams. This is so much lighter than the competition. 15 grams lighter than this one, 23 grams. It's like basically 50% lighter. And this is, yeah, it's a lot lighter than that. So the thing about this mouse is it's kind of similar in shape, but because of the size, this is like smaller. Like you can easily tell that this mouse is a lot smaller. And it fits more with what I call a small mouse, whereas this is more of a medium mouse. And I pretty much more fingertip this mouse versus this one is more of a claw grip. And there's a big difference between that. Like I can activate my fingers a lot more on this mouse. And I feel like I can make these micro adjustments a lot better because it's smaller versus this mouse. It really takes up my whole entire hand and I can't really activate my fingers as much. So I do feel like I get a little bit more constricted when I use the Viper, but it also feels more comfortable because it's bigger and there's more to hold on to. So it's definitely a thing to consider between, I guess, a medium and a small size mouse. The other thing is these things both have optical switches, so you're not going to get double clicking. The scroll wheels is actually very similar. Honestly, I feel like your scroll wheels definitely like loosen over time. Like right now, the Viper feels tighter, but over time it might loosen up more. Now, when it comes to like the side buttons, I mean, they're both honestly good. I don't think you can complain about either one. It definitely is a little bit more muted type of mouse. The sounds are not as like clicky clacky as kind of the metal sounds of the Beast X. So it depends on what type of sound you like, but the Beast X definitely has this like higher pitch frequency versus The Viper is less high pitched, honestly. So when it comes to kind of like the coating and stuff on these mouses, so the Viper has this like nice rubbery type of texture. It's very, very grippy. It's definitely more grippy than the texture on the BeastX, but like the BeastX has this like shiny metal look. Like I feel like the trade-off is still worth it. I don't really find this mouse to really slip and slide in my hand, but it's definitely less sticky than the Viper, but it's not a bad coating. I mean, just look how nice this mouse looks. It looks pretty ridiculous, right? Now, the holes on the mouse is what gives it the lighter weight, but I feel like that could be a problem for some people because the bigger holes might cause some discomfort for people. It's not a problem for me, but I can see that being an issue for people, versus this nice, smooth, solid shell of the Viper is just definitely going to be a more comfortable experience for a lot of people. And so really the battery life is probably the weakest part about this mouse. Is the thing I don't like. The battery life only lasts like, I would say like 13 hours. This one, I mean, I'm still testing it, but it says like 17 hours, but I've been testing these ones and they seem to last a lot longer than this. I would say at least 2 times longer, if not more. So really, if you're looking for a battery life, then the Viper V3 Pro is definitely the one to go. When it comes down to these two, like my personal favorite right now, the one I perform the best, I guess I should say, is definitely the magnesium mouse. The BeastX definitely is my better performer, but that's also not surprising considering how I've had this mouse for a lot longer than this one that I just got. So, I mean, that's not really much of an indicator, is it? But I think for most people trying to decide between these two, it's really kind of like enthusiast mouse versus like the mouse that most people are going to like. I feel like this one has just a better experience for most people because it has a smoother texture, the battery life is longer, the shape is, more filling your hand. I just feel like a lot more people are going to like this one versus this one. There could be some things like, might not like that battery life. It's kind of short, and you might not like the holes, so it's less of a safe pick. But, I feel like if you're choosing between both these, they're both good mouses. It just, depends on if you really value that like lightweight nature and that small mouse that this thing kind of delivers. So between the Viper, I guess V2 Pro type of shape or the super light type of shape, I kind of already did this review already. So I'm just going to go past this really quickly. You guys can check the other review I did, but essentially you have a bigger hump in the back. You have less of the contour sides on the Viper V3 Pro than on the Viper V2. I just feel like the Viper V2 is more like the BeastX in the sense of like, it's more like a fingertip type of mouse versus like having a lot of support in the back where you can really like claw grip it a lot better. And so I feel like this mouse is like more in that type of category. And I feel like a lot of people just didn't like that shape because a lot of people gravitated towards the bigger hump of the G Pro wireless over the Viper. So in that sense, like this one really isn't the one that most people like, to be honest. It's sort of the competition between these two mouses that's very interesting. And really, I feel like the Viper just has more of a flatter shape and it has a wider shape. And like this one just feels like you're holding on to like an egg. That's the only real way to describe it. Like it's very circular. And I feel like because it's so circular, it causes your hand to feel less comfortable versus this one being just flatter and wider and not as tall in like the center area, and the hump being placed a little bit more in the back and less in the front. I mean, really that difference in hump does make a difference. And then the flatter kind of contour of this goes kind of more deep versus this one kind of levels off a little bit more. I feel like overall the Viper just feels like it's made more for like a human sized hand versus the roundness of the G Pro wireless is just a little too much and making it feel just a little unnatural because it's so kind of round. So I feel like you get a lot better support on the Viper V3 Pro. You could do the side by side shot of all the mouses. I don't know if that gives you guys an idea of like how tall each mouse is. I think it's pretty interesting type of shot right there. And then you guys can kind of see how these kind of stack up. So here's a front shot of all the mouses and then the aerial shot of all these mouses, kind of see how the size compares. Hopefully that's helpful for some of you guys. Anyways, I hope this video helped you guys. Please like and subscribe down below. Helps my videos out, and I'll see you guys in my next video.